Um, this, I'm not sure if you can pay so a little picture, but that number is from by. That number brings you up to cell phone, and somebody either here or in the building. It's pictures.
About ready to start. I'm Judy Russell. I'm the Dean of University Libraries. I very much appreciate having all of you here today. And I'm going to briefly introduce Lauren Price, who is going to introduce our guest. Go that way.
So I am so happy to have Rabbi here with us. He has been a part of my life since I was a child. He was the rabbi at our synagogue in Newburgh, New York, where I come from. And a couple of years ago, we were meeting with Judith and some other members of the staff, and they were throwing ideas out there for people to come and speak. And I said, I know someone wonderful. And here he is. So this is Rabbi Hirshel Jaffe here to enlighten us about his experience. And I will let you take it from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to speak to all you guys and the people watching over Zoom. I was the founding rabbi of a temple in Dallas, Texas in 1966. And at that time, there appeared on the scene Dr. Kenneth Cooper, who began to speak and write about aerobics. And I kind of followed him, and they said, jogging is good for you. And this was at the very beginning of jogging catching on. And they said, so to start off, see how long it takes for you to run a mile. And I was having pizza with my friends. It was 11 o'clock at night. I had my shoes on, but I went around the track, and that was my starting point. And I fell in love with running. So that my nickname was the Running Rabbi. And I participated in the New York City Marathon in 1978 with the T-shirt with that logo. And I felt indestructible, but of course, that's an illusion. Nobody is immune, not the rich and the poor, the young and the old. Anybody can get sick. And what was happening is we had a beautiful summer home in the island of Martha's Vineyard. And I was going for a run on the beach, and I looked down, and there was a big black and blue mark on my leg. And I said, that's strange. Then I went home to New York and was running with some of my friends, and I found I was out of energy. I couldn't keep up. Well, knowing my body, the doctor in my community said maybe I had mononucleosis, but I said, no, there's something worse than that. And sure enough, I went to a hematologist and a friend of mine, and my daughter Nina came with me. I think she was about 9 years old. And they took the slides, and then the doctor came back and dropped the slides. Later, he told me he was so upset at what he saw, because on the slides, he saw these little hair-like projections that showed that I had a very rare leukemia called hairy cell leukemia. And Nina, my daughter, saw the serious expression on the doctors' faces and said, is my daddy going to die? But I always had a fighting spirit. And I immediately said, what can I do about this? I'm going to hang in there and fight this as best as I can. So they tried oral chemotherapy, but it was to no avail. After about a year, we heard that there was a doctor in Chicago who was working on the possibility that interferon, the immunological drug, might be efficacious with this very rare leukemia. So we went out to visit him, and he said, hang in there, Rabbi, we're working on it. The next thing you know, I had, with fevers of 105, we called Chicago, and there were cancer patients from New York who founded, it's a wonderful thing, the Angel Network, where if a little jet, business jet was flying in your direction, they would take you if you're a cancer patient. So wearing a mask and really shuddering and trembling, I was flown to Chicago. And that night, my doctor got emergency permission, compassionate usage from the FDA to try to give me interferon that was made by Shearing Plow, the pharmaceutical country. Well, my doctor told me there was some confrontation with Shearing. They didn't want to give permission for me to take interferon. They said I didn't fit the protocol. And my doctor advocated on my behalf. And he said, the rabbi visited the hostages. And if you, Shearing, don't permit him to have interferon, I'll never give you another patient as long as I live. So they started to administer me interferon. And also, I had the rare TB, the atypical mycobacterium, like a twin to the AIDS, what the AIDS patient get. And several of my fellow patients succumbed to the TB alone. So I was treated both with interferon for Hirshel leukemia, and they gave me every drug you ever heard of for TB. And for some reason, I responded. Later, when I testified with my doctor before Congress twice, asking for more money for medical research, my doctor said that I was one of the sickest patients that ever had this disease, but maybe being so sick, it potentiated a better recovery. So, and oh, by the way, it was around the middle of December that I got better, and my doctor always says, the Christmas that I resurrected the rabbi. Okay, so what happened was that I, as an experimental patient, I had to fly to Chicago from New York maybe 15 times. And every time they would take vials of blood and bone marrow, and they would check me out. Now, what happened when I was in the hospital, I became depressed. They took away the mirror. They didn't want to see how emaciated I was. And the doctors and nurses came into our room and said, Rabbi, we want to make a contract with you. We know that you're depressed, but we want to get you out of your mode. So, we'll give you some more pain therapy, and we'll take you down to the gym and lower you into warm water. And they said, they kind of embarrassed me. They said, why don't you be a rabbi? Maybe pastor to some of the other patients. Well, so I go down to the basement, and they're lowering me into a tank of water because for some reason, I had a lot of pain in all my extremities. And I looked over, and there was a young man in a wheelchair. They were calling him Jerry. And he was trying to lift himself up onto these wooden parallel bars. And if he lifted himself an inch, it was a lot. And they were saying, come on, Jerry. I said, what guts? So remembering that the doctor said, be a rabbi, later that evening, I wheeled myself into Jerry's room. And if anything, he was a lot worse than I was. And he said, how are you doing there, Rabbi? And I, in a cynical way, I said, I don't know. I don't think the doctors want to tell me the bad news. So he says to me, wait a minute, Hirshel, right? I said, yes. He said, you're Jewish, right? I said, yes. He said, didn't I hear you are a rabbi? I said, yes. Well, Rabbi Hirshel, didn't I hear that the Jews were a very hopeful people, that the national anthem of the Jewish people is Hatikva, the hope? So Rabbi, why don't you be more hopeful? I think that young Christian knew more about my religion than I did. And also, some ministers came to my bedside, a priest and a minister, and they prayed with me And they didn't pray the traditional, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains or invoke a psalm. They said in a very personal way, dear God, here's our friend Herschel. He's lying in this bed. He wants to get better so that he can see his daughter skating on the ice or stand on the chuppah for a wedding. Be kind to him. Well, in a way, my Christian friends taught me how to pray. Because that night, I had some terrible fevers with the shaking chills, and the nurses came and tried to help me. And I said, let me pray the way those ministers taught me to pray. Instead of saying, I lift my eye, Esai El Harim, Me'ayin Yovo Ezri, I lift my eyes to the mountains, from whence cometh my help. I said, dear God, Lord, I'm trying to get up this mountain. And every time I get up a little way, I fall back. Please, Lord, could you hold my hand and let me not fall into the abyss? And that prayer worked. Now, as an experimental patient, I went back every month and, they would check me out, but Jerry was still there. And every time I would go in to see Jerry. And I said, hi, Jerry, how you doing? I said, Jerry, you got a lot of guts. He said, you've got a lot of courage, Rabbi. You're amazing. I said, no, you're the amazing one. About the fourth time I went back, I said, how's my friend Jerry? And they said, Jerry didn't make it. And I went to the chapel. I was sobbing. I was in mourning. And I said, I got to remember my friend Jerry. And on the way home on the plane, I thought to myself, at the end of every Sabbath service, we have the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah. May the great name of God be praised. And I had never done this before. I would read the names of the people who died in the congregation. And I added Jerry Ayler's name to that list, and I've been reading it ever since. The title of what happened was I had these dear friends, a rabbi and his wife, who were authors. He was a very prominent rabbi, a leader in Christian-Jewish relations. And they came to my bedside and they said, Herschel, you have a story to tell. Can we record you? And I did. They had to record me because I was so weak, I couldn't write. I couldn't hold anything. So they recorded me and helped me write my first book, Why Me, Why Anyone? It was the chronicle of my battle with leukemia and the sources of faith and healing that sustain us in time of adversity. It was written in two typefaces. The italicized print was me, what I'm thinking in the hospital, and the regular print was what my friends thought where Jewish teaching and other religious teaching could help comfort the sick. And that book, it reached a lot of people. A lot of rabbis gave sermons about it. And so when I got back to my temple, I wanted to get into action right away. And I was kind of weak, but I was determined, and I went onto the pulpit, and one of the congregants in a very kind way said, Rabbi, you have comforted us. And the subtitle of Why Me, Why Anyone is Who Will Comfort the Comforter? So let us comfort you. And they gave me a hug. Well, something very untoward happened, very frightening. After a couple of months in my pulpit, I was feeling very down. I didn't understand why, because I'm a very positive person. And I went to officiate at the High Holy Day services. And my president was a doctor who looked at me and said, Hirshel, what's wrong? And I said, I can't do it. And I was hospitalized. And the doctor said, gee, you're such a positive person. How could you be so depressed? And then my doctor, my oncologist, called from Chicago and said, they found that one of the dreadful side effects of interferon is that it can induce massive depressions. So I learned what I learned about was that, if anything, mental illness is worse than physical illness. And, you know, I had members of my congregation, they had a boy that was schizophrenic. I went to him. I felt so bad for the parents. There was just no healing there. So I was hospitalized, and they gave me, what's it called? Oh, electroconvulsive therapy, but not like in the old days, you know. It was very mild, and it worked. And I regained my senses and went back to my temple and functioned. And thank God, I've never had another episode of depression, except I'm very depressed now about the election. That's another story. So after my book came out, I came to the attention of the American Cancer Society, and I became their national spokesman. I flew all over, and then I delivered the 75th anniversary address of the American Cancer Society in Dallas, Texas. Thousands of people, the nurses, the doctors, the therapists. And I looked out and I said, I want to talk to the nurses because I found out that nursing is a magnificent profession. When they were the nurses were the ones who helped me when I had these shaking chills in the middle of the night. And I have nothing but high esteem for the nursing profession. So I became the national spokesman for the American Cancer Society, and I flew all over to all the divisions to encourage them and raise funds. And then I became the man of the year for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's a wonderful organization. And what they do is, with every $250,000 they raise, they endow a kind of a scholarship for a young person to work on medical research, like they did at Sloan Kettering. So what happened was that when I recovered from hairy cell leukemia, I said to my doctors, is this it? And they said, no, it could come back. And sure enough, after 6 years, I was on interferon for 6 years. It was a very difficult drug. And then a scientist in California at the Scripps Institute developed a form of chemotherapy called 2-CDA or cladribine. And 1 week of this chemo put all of us hairy cell leukemia patients into long-lasting remissions for 13 years. So I went into out of remission. I took the chemo again. I went into remission. So I've battled that for 3 times. And the doctors told me that I could expect that I would be diagnosed with other cancers because they morph. So sure enough, in addition to the hairy, I've actually survived cancer 5 times. And I know I shouldn't be here. When I went to the hospital for a checkup, a surgeon saw me in the elevator. He said, Rabbi Jaffe? I said, yeah. He said, you're not supposed to be here. And when I went home and I was asking my mechanic, called my mechanic to fix my car, he said, Rabbi Jaffe? I said, yes. He said, I heard you died. So anyway, I then had a rare lymphoma, and I was rescued with another immunological drug called Rituxan. And then finally, 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with the most serious lymphoma, the same diagnosis as Congressman Jamie Raskin. And it's called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. It is a very bad prognosis of only maybe 2 years. Well, I responded to the treatment. It came in the nick of time. You know, it was a combination of Rituxan, 3 chemotherapies, and prednisone. And I've been in remission for 9 years. And I asked my doctors what happened. Well, now the scientists believe that everybody has their own brand of a particular leukemia or lymphoma. And the characteristics of mine were such that if I went beyond 2 years, it promised a long remission. So the question was, now that my life has been saved, what was I going to do? There's a beautiful prayer that you say when you're rescued, a Hebrew prayer. You go to the congregation, you go on the bima, and you say 4 Hebrew words: Baruch shegamalani kol tov. Blessed are you who has done me much good. And I must say this prayer 100 times a day. So I decided that in thanks for my life, I would reach out to cancer patients everywhere. And indeed, I started to speak to cancer patients. I staged races all over the country to raise money for cancer research. And then I developed an inspirational website. The address is marathonrabbi.com. And on the website are all my videos and my blogs, inspirational. And I put my phone number and my email and welcome people from all 55 countries all over the world. Please call me if you need a prayerful friend. So recently a woman called me from France and she said, Rabbi, I was diagnosed with leukemia. I'm so scared. Can you help me? And of course I did. And this gives a lot of meaning to my life. I have two, for all my followers, I have 2 basic teachings. One is take care of your body because it's a precious gift. And the other is, no matter how much ritual you perform, how many rosary beads, keeping kosher, whatever it is, praying to Allah, you can't call yourself a religious or spiritual person unless you're kind to other people. That was the teaching of our sage and philosopher Maimonides centuries ago in the book, The Mishnah Torah, in which he said that just that, you can't call yourself a religious or spiritual person unless you're kind to other people. So to me, friends, the heart of true religion is human goodness and decency, and it far surpasses denominational grounds. And, you know, we're all human beings on this planet. And the verbiage I use, I usually don't say my Black friends, my Hispanic friends, my gay friends. I just say my friends, because we're all human beings. And I believe what I said when I testified before Congress asking for more money, Congressman Waxman from California, I remember him. And I quoted the Hebrew maxim, Hamatzil nefesh achat b'Yisrael, ki ilu hitzil olam maleh. If you save one life, you save a whole world. And the Congress said, Rabbi, give that to the translator. So when I was testifying, there were reporters there. It was in Chicago. And there was a reporter from the Chicago Tribune. So I approached him and I said, oh, I guess you're covering the story. He said, well, Rabbi, I'm here for another reason. I said, what? He said, my father died of your disease. I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He said, no, don't be sorry. I'm here because I wanted to hear that somebody made it. It's a very moving, very moving moment. So what happened was that a publisher, being aware of my first book that was published in 1986 by St. Martin's Press, they're an inspirational publisher, and they approached my co-authors and me and asked if they could publish a sequel. And they did. It just came out. It's Why Not Me? Searching for God When We Suffer, a cancer survivor's story of family, friendship, humor, and faith. If you put into the Amazon search bar, Why Not Me by Jaffe, it'll come up with it. And you can send me the book and I'll inscribe it for you and send it back to you. But really, the book is bringing people up to date after 40 years. And at the end of the book, I have my 14 points of guidance for coping with illness. Like, if you have a few minutes that you're okay, make advantage of them. Get involved in your treatment. Don't just sit passively. Ask the doctor questions. If you have, laughter, all of these. Now, on the last page of my book, Why Not Me, there's a scene at my grandson's bar mitzvah. I got to boast of my grandson. He's a champion gymnast and a champion equestrian. And the kindest, sweetest boy in the world. They live in California with my daughter, he and his impish brother. So at his bar mitzvah in Los Angeles, his topic for his little bar mitzvah talk was courage. And he said, I asked my grandpa Hirshel how he found courage in the time of pain and adversity. And Grandpa Hirshel told me that Psalm 138 begins with the words, B'yom kraticha v'ta'aneni, in the day I called out to you, O Lord, you answered me. And the last line is Ma'aseh yadecha al teref, leave not your work unfinished. So my grandson said, Grandpa Hirshel told me that Hashem, the Lord, the Eternal, has more work and more mitzvahs for him to do. And that's one of the reasons I'm here with you today. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Please, I would welcome any questions that you have or comments. I used to tell my congregants, just ask me the questions that I know the answer to. Yes, please.
What is the state of this illness now? Have they made further progressions in the medication?
Actually, the discovery by the Scripps Institute doctor was this 2-CDA cladribine, and it's amazing. It's put people into 13-year remissions, and it's an amazing drug. It's helped 90% of us. I don't think there may be another combination of this 2-CDA with something else that might be or more efficacious, and it would be there for me if it ever recurs.
What year were you diagnosed?
Oh, let me see. Okay, 1978. 1982. Oh, I remember what happened. They gave me oral chemotherapy, but it didn't work, and I hung in there for 2 years and found out about the doctor in Chicago. Yes, sir.
I remember reading maybe 30 years ago, the book When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Don't remember the details of it, but I was wondering how your approach compares to that.
Harold Kushner actually endorsed my book. I did the same for him. And what I believe is, when I was a rabbi in Dallas, there was a tragedy. A little child drowned in his parents' pool. And the priest came, to console the people and said, oh, Johnny's with the angels. But in Judaism, we don't say that. We recognize that there are tragedies that are terrible and make us angry, and we don't find a reason. And the tendency, so Jews have always recognized that things can go wrong in the world, as Abraham did over the fate of the people when he said, "Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat." Abraham challenged God, will the judge of all the earth not deal justly? So I believe that there are very awful things that happen. We don't have the explanation. All we can do is comfort one another, but it is perfectly permissible to be angry and to be tortured. And I know I had a tragedy. My second daughter died of a heart attack when she was 46. She was dealt a very bad hand. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis is an inflammatory disease and affects the heart. So Rachel's not with us. We scattered her ashes on Martha's Vineyard in front of the home that we had many years ago. And we were hoping for a beautiful sunset, but it was a gloomy day. And just as we scattered Rachel's ashes, a ray of sunlight shone through. So, did I miss the question or? Oh, I know, yeah. So what I'm saying is, we say there's a long Jewish tradition of being angry with God and challenging God. God can take it. And I know people, even some of my friends who are such unbelievers that they don't believe in God. By the way, that does not take away being Jewish. There's nothing in the Torah that says believe in God. All it says is believe in the commandments. On the high holidays, we read from Leviticus 19. Is this the fast I have chosen? And to give alms to the poor, to comfort the mourners. Every morning, there's a beautiful morning prayer. Elu davarim she'ein lahem shiur. These are the things we do that are without measure. Attending a funeral, attending a wedding, comforting the mourner. And it says at the end, and the study of Torah, the study of God's law, leads to all. Because when you study, you become enlightened. And I'm still studying and I'm still looking for answers. Yes, please.
When the people suffer so much, if they ask, Lord, please take my life away, is that kind of a simple prayer of asking because you want to die? Hey, it's Lord, take my life away. So have you ever been, having this kind of a thought when you really suffered? Or
Yes, I did when I was severely depressed. I was thinking that I didn't want to live. And thankfully, I wasn't to the point of carrying it out, but surely it entered my heart, that, oh, this is impossible. I don't want to live, but I never acted on it. I thought about it. So I know there's an expression for it. I forgot what it is, but it's not real suicide. It's a suicidal impulse. And talk about mourning. I really do a lot of mourning, and I'm very depressed about the state of our world. People can't talk to each other. It's horrible. There's so much hatred. Now Republicans, Democrats, they're just angry with each other instead of saying, oh, you have your opinion, I have my opinion. Let's talk about it. This is not healthy. It's not a good idea. Yes, please.
Question, when you had friends that visited you while I think you were either in the first first set of admission and they were Christians. And then it was another rabbi. I'm not sure of, the exact details, but I wanted to know, how did you keep that friendship going, seeing that you guys had different beliefs and different reasons?
How did I keep the friendship with who?
With the individuals who came to visit you when you were in Hollywood?
Oh, I did. Oh, yes, I did. There was a Methodist minister from my community. He actually said, Rabbi, I think we're practically Jewish. And I preached in his church. There was a black minister, an amazing person, and a real leader in our community. And Saul Williams, and I stayed in touch with him. And the rabbi who came to visit me was a leading theologian in Chicago, and I kept in touch with him. And he passed away. And something interesting, Barack Obama lived across the street from the rabbi's synagogue, Rabbi Arnold Jacob Wolf, and he became friendly with Arnold Jacob Wolf and studied Torah with him. And when Arnold Wolf passed away, Barack Obama couldn't come because there was a snowstorm, but instead of writing the typical sorry for your loss, he wrote like 8 pages of a truly sincere eulogy for his wonderful friend. And so Barack knows a little more than just, superficial stuff. I mean, I'm impressed by that. Oh, by the way, my brother belongs to the same golf course on Martha's Vineyard as Barack Obama. My brother's a champion senior golfer. And he said to Barack Obama, you want to play golf with me? And Obama said, no, I don't think so. My brother is 85. He just won the championship for the 5th year in a row. And unbelievably, he's 85, and 2 weeks ago, he scored a 75. That's amazing. To shoot your age is amazing. So I was always jealous of my brother for his athletic talents. Yes, please.
I guess to follow up on that question, what is the key to good interfaith relations, would you say?
What is the key?
Good interfaith relations.
Oh, okay. Okay, my co-author, Rabbi Jim Rudin, was knighted by the Pope. It's very rare for a rabbi, only 5 rabbis. Jim Rudin was director of interreligious affairs for the American Jewish Committee, and he was a leading observer of the Christian Jewish scene. When the Pope commissioned the Holocaust concert, Jim was sitting right next to the Pope. So the question was?
Good interfaith relations.
Yeah. Okay. To me, I believe that it doesn't matter what faith you are or no faith. We're all children of God. And I think there should be no barriers. For example, I became the first rabbi in the Hudson Valley in New York who officiated interfaith weddings because I thought it was wrong to turn couples away. And my best friend became a Catholic priest who co-officiated with me. He wore yarmulke, he knew the Hebrew blessings. We've had a love affair for many, many years. And I remember preaching at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Newburgh. And I'm preaching there, and they're going, right on, Rabbi, tell it like it is. So I go back to my Jewish congregation. I say, why can't you be like that? Say, amen, Rabbi. Yes.
Obviously, times have changed a lot since you first entered treatment and maybe today. And you talk about the effect that that faith ministers and hospital chaplains maybe had on you. And so I guess I want to know, for that kind of work that hospital chaplains have to do, the people who are constantly sort of trying to bring faith and support the spiritual needs of the sick in hospitals, what advice or what ways do you think that profession could kind of continue to do its work and improve?
Oh, yes, by the way, I helped train the pastoral counselors at Sloan Kettering on how to approach the patient. And one of the things that people do, like friends come and they mean well, but they start telling jokes. They think it's to distract the person. The first thing you do when you come to visit a patient is to do nothing. Just say, I'm here. What do you want to tell me? And let them share with you. And I remember an episode. I got, when I was a rabbi in Newburgh, I got a call from a young Catholic priest in Newburgh. He said, Rabbi, could you see Mary Jane at St. Luke's Hospital? I knew exactly what he meant. He meant, she's very sick and you know what to do, Rabbi, better than I do. So I went to Mary Jane's bedside and her two daughters were there in the room. And she was very, very sick. And she looked up at me and said, Rabbi, did you have to wear a mask? Did you have these fevers? And I kept saying, yes, yes. And she said, well, then you know. And I knew that Mary's time was very, very limited. So I tried to, in a very kind way, to give her the peaceful way of leaving. So I didn't say, Mary, you want to die. I said, Mary, you're so tired and you're seeking rest and your daughters are here who love you. And I motioned, the daughters were scared to talk to her. I motioned the daughters to hug and kiss their mother. And I said, Mary Jane, your wonderful deeds will be remembered forever. And I left the room and my knees were shaking. I'm saying, oh my God, did I say the right thing? And then I got a beautiful letter from the family saying, thanking me for helping Mary pass. So thank you so much. I really, I appreciate you being here. Yes.
So just as a caveat, having grown up with the privilege of having this man in my life, I asked him earlier what year it was that he was diagnosed because I was trying to remember when we found out about it in my household. My parents were very good friends with Rabbi and his wife and just being sick over it. And I became engaged in 1982 to Jerry Sandberg. And I remember saying to my parents, Rabbi has to get better because I can't have someone else marry me. I just hoped and prayed and thought about you constantly.
Oh,
And he did make it and he did marry us.
Oh.
I was so thrilled to have
Oh.
that happen. I was lucky to have him as a spiritual leader. And I was telling him yesterday that when I was in confirmation class at the age of 15, it was my favorite day of the week that I would go after school and he had just, I don't know, there were 12 or 15 of us and we would sit in the lounge and he was so full of energy and telling us amazing stories and making us laugh. It wasn't like something you dread. He's just always been the amazing man that you see here today. Thank you.
thank you, Lord. Thank you. You're a wonderful friend, and the Lord, was instrumental in my being invited here. Her dad sponsored my, I had my mission to Iran to visit the 52 hostages. I spoke about that yesterday. And her dad sponsored my mission to Tehran. So I guess. Thank you. Great.